Washington is to send 100 special operations troops to Uganda to help local forces fight the Lord's Resistance Army, widely considered a terrorist organization. The Ugandan government has been fighting this guerrilla group for over 2 decades. But Asia Times correspondent Pepe Escobar says America has far-reaching plans for the region that have little to do with protecting civilians.
First of all, this is an exchange of gifts. President Obama is giving a gift to the dictator of Uganda, Museveni, who's been in power for 25 to 26 years. And he's as responsible of human rights infringements and, in fact, attacks on civilians and murderous attacks on civilians as Joseph Kony. So Obama is sending these 100 U.S. special forces billed as advisors. So remember Vietnam in 1961-62. It started with a bunch of advisors going to Vietnam, and we know what history taught us later. This is a civil war, and it's an ethnic war. Once again, the U.S. is stepping right into the middle of an ethnic war that's been going on for over 2 decades. But the bigger picture is even more impressive, because this is not about Uganda itself. And even Obama admitted on the record already that these advisors are going to South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo as well. So when you look at that area in Central Africa and you see the amount of oil and the amount of mineral riches at play, and when we see that China is making inroads commercially in this area, and when we look at the Africans' agenda, which is to combat China commercially via a militarization of Africa, then you understand this 100, the beginning of many that will be going to Uganda soon.
Beneath the scenic shorelines of Lake Albert, under the water and the lagoons, there are riches. Enough oil to dramatically change the fortune of Uganda. In full production, around 150,000 barrels of oil a day will be pumped out of this area. For now, the oil companies are still in exploration, drilling up to 4 kilometers into the earth. Uganda and the oil executives insist that mistakes in past oil booms such as Nigeria and Angola won't be repeated. Exploitation, pollution, corruption, what's called the curse of African oil. Those dangers are all evident here. The expectations of a poor local population, a natural environment, and the potential for conflict. 40 kilometers over Lake Albert is the Democratic Republic of Congo. The border is somewhere in the middle of the lake. The oil is on both sides. The peaceful setting belies the strained relationship between the DRC and Uganda. Dealings between oil executives and the neighbors have taken place, but there's no plan as yet to extract oil from the DRC. For Ugandans, excitement outweighs the doubts for now. Real oil money is yet to be seen, but one company is paying for school renovations, help with water supplies, health services, and rescue boats for fishermen. The people of Lake Albert have coexisted with wildlife for centuries, so can the oil industry limit its effects on this way of life?
You've got absolutely everything playing out: environment aspects, security aspects, technical aspects, commercial aspects. What's going to be different is, I think, there are many people who've come from industries elsewhere around the world, Nigeria, Angola, and they've all come together here, I think, with the view that we can really make this one work.
President Yoweri Museveni is promising full transparency on revenue, and he's put his country's home petroleum needs to the fore. He's gone against oil company advice, and his energy ministry has been instructed to ensure some of the oil is refined in Uganda.
The entire region is importing petroleum products from outside. That is causing a lot of energy insecurity in the entire region, in the country. So it's important that we create security of energy resources.
Opposition politicians say they fear many Ugandans believe there'll be instant gain from oil.
The peasants would have abandoned their normal lives expecting to get oil, whether in money from the oil fields or in the urban centers, and when they flock there, it's social chaos instead of development and national transformation. That worries a lot.
Exactly how lives will be transformed will become clearer when limited oil production is planned towards the end of next year. So much hope rests on Uganda getting it right, and East Africa's biggest oil find becoming a model for the industry and future generations. Andrew Simmons, Al Jazeera, Kaisatonya, Western Uganda.
Hi, this is Eric 1970X. It's October the 14th, 2011. Here's an article from October the 3rd, 2011. Oil could fuel conflict in Uganda, warns Betty O'Can. Betty O'Can, the woman member of Parliament for Gulu and opposition deputy chief whip, has warned that the discovery and drilling of oil in Uganda could fuel conflict that will engulf the entire country. O'Can has explained that because of the lack of transparency in the oil sharing deals by government and other foreign companies involved in the extraction, oil is likely potential cause of clash in the country. And it goes on to in depth here, and at the end Uganda has discovered at least 1 billion barrels of oil recently along its western border with Congo. In March, the government approved a joint venture deal with UK, China, and French oil companies for development of oil fields in 3 blocks in Uganda. Alright, I've noticed that I didn't see the United States listed in these deals. So let's fast forward it. 13 days later, or 11 days later, Obama sending troops to Central Africa to aid fight against rebels. President Obama has deployed troops to Central Africa to aid fight against Lord Resistance Army, according to the letter to the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. Here's what the letter says. For more than 2 decades, the Lord's Resistance Army has murdered, raped, and kidnapped tens of thousands of men, women, and children in Central Africa. The LRA continues to commit atrocities across the Central African Nation Republic, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Sudan, and have disappropriate impact on regional security. So they're going to start out with 100 advisors, and just like they did in Vietnam. As soon as they find oil, they got to have a piece of the oil. It's all about the energy. So the forces will be deployed in Uganda, South Sudan, and the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. That's stretching it thin for 100 or so troops, but I'm sure it'll be more than that. They talked about civilian forces that go along with them, probably like Blackwater or something. So there's your reason for the troops going to Africa. Still. Thanks for watching. This is Eric. Peace.
Energy experts say Uganda will start producing crude oil this year, reaching peak production of 150,000 barrels a day by 2015. Some of the oil will be used for power production, but the bulk will be sold domestically and in the region. The government says the revenue will be used for infrastructure development. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni is reaching out to international investors.
The oil industry in Uganda has potential of providing a lot of investment opportunities to oil companies and other related businesses. You are all welcome to invest in Uganda, to invest in this emerging industry. I'm confident that with these interventions, Uganda will be a good destination for investment in the mining, petroleum, and energy sectors.
Within Uganda, there have been concerns that the oil revenue sharing agreements between energy companies and the government have not been made public. Dr. Kizza Besigye, Uganda's leading opposition figure, says that this lack of transparency could lead to high levels of corruption and warns that some of the contracts may have to be renegotiated. Other critics say that Museveni, who has ruled for more than 2 decades and is standing for a 4th presidential term, will not tolerate a handover of power with petrodollars about to flow.
The secret contracts that have been negotiated with the current regime will have to be reviewed because we don't know what they are. Will have to be reviewed, and a review can lead to any kind of outcomes. Could lead to a renegotiation, it could lead to cancellation, it could lead to any form of outcome depending on what we find. We don't know. This country does not know what our leaders are negotiating on our behalf.
Last year, a Ugandan court dismissed a case that local NGOs had filed to compel the government to disclose the details of oil-sharing agreements it signed with 4 companies. Tom Balemesa, an oil researcher and Peace Corps fellow, says that since the discovery of oil, expectations are high and life of ordinary people is being transformed in one of the remotest regions in western Uganda.
With the accent of oil, more people are coming in and more people are expecting to get a lot of benefits in terms of jobs.
Balemesa is also concerned that Uganda's local population will not be able to get jobs in the oil industry.
The idea of jobs is so complicated. First of all, we lack the skills. The oil industry is so high-tech, I should say. The little, I usually say, the little I've read about it is so high-tech. Then, well, people are talking about the small, medium enterprise developments. Yeah, those ones are there. But usually it will go to the people who have got the qualification.
Analysts say Uganda has the potential to produce as many as 200,000 barrels of oil per day. This would place Uganda among the top 50 biggest producers in the world and among the top 10 in Africa. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
The surprise announcement came in a letter from the White House to Congress. It immediately raised a key question. Why is the U.S., which is already involved in 2 long wars, deploying troops now?
It goes back to one thing, oil. Let's remember, Uganda has oil. It changes the calculus always with U.S. foreign policy when it's a country that is seen to be rich with its resource that's become almost an addiction for the U.S. and the global economy.
In his letter, the president was quick to point out that the American forces would not be there in a combat role. He wrote, although the U.S. forces are combat equipped, they will only be providing information, advice and assistance to partner nation forces, and they will not themselves engage LRA forces unless necessary for self-defense. The U.S. president's decision commits U.S. troops to help battle a Ugandan rebel group he once condemned as an affront to human dignity. The LRA is notorious for its brutality. Its fighters have been accused of hacking body parts of victims, abducting young boys and forcing them to bear arms, and kidnapping young girls to act as sex slaves. The LRA, which says it is a religious group, first emerged in northern Uganda in the 1990s and is believed to have killed, kidnapped and mutilated tens of thousands of people. Its leader, Joseph Kony, has been indicted by the Hague-based International Criminal Court on charges of war crimes and crimes against humanity. LRA commanders have been operating in the wild and largely lawless border regions of the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic and South Sudan in recent years. Kony himself is believed to be in hiding in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The president's action is sure to come under fire from critics. Although he says he is acting legally, Americans will still wonder whether this is the time to get involved in yet another foreign military engagement, no matter how small the troop commitment. Anand Naidu, Al Jazeera, at the State Department.